Let us now focus on the new kingdoms which emerged after the collapse of the Mauryan Empire. Before we go into that, we look at the Tamilakam region, which even during the Mauryan Empire remained outside their influence. So this region consisted of three chiefdoms known as Cheras, Cholas and Pandyas, in which each had their own capital city, and they were ruled by chiefs who was supported by his clan or kinfolk while ruling, but his position was not hereditary. Do keep in mind that this Tamilakam region was quite prosperous owing to the fact that it carried out maritime trade. So it had trade extending not only to the eastern countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia and all, but it also had trade in the western part, okay, going up till Mediterranean Sea, that is even with the Roman Empire. So this region had a very strong naval base too, because they needed to control not only the activities taking place in this sea route, but if in case they wish to conquer newer territories. In fact, if you don't know, some of these rulers managed to subjugate even Sri Lanka. So what is the most important source to know about these chiefdoms or about this region? It is the Tamil Sangam texts. Okay, the name of the books are not given, the Sangam text. Just for your information, there was some text known as Ettu Togai, Pattu Pattu, okay, and a lot more. You don't need to remember their names. So what was this Sangam text? It is believed that there was an assembly of poets and kings, and whatever was uttered in this gatherings, it was handed down in Sangam text. So it doesn't only contain fiction, which talks about a lot of beautiful stories, but it also talks about the history, the economy, and the polity of this Sangam era, of these three chiefdoms during that era. That is why it is a vital source of information. There are a number of texts, okay? Do keep that in mind. Now, which are the other kingdoms or empires which emerged after Mauryas, which had trade as their mainstay of economy? Okay, see, Mauryas did not have trade as their mainstay because the empire was so huge. They derived most of their revenue from the agricultural surplus. Okay, the agricultural was the mainstay of Mauryan Empire. So it was the Satavahanas which ruled in the central and south India, which had trade as the mainstay of economy. Then you had the Shakas, which supplanted the Indo-Greeks in the northwestern part of India, who carried out trade and immensely profited from that. Okay, so trade was the mainstay of the Tamilakam region, the Satavahanas as well as the Shakas. But there's always also a catch. Okay, regarding Satavahanas and Shakas, we don't know about their social origin much. Not the place of origin, rather the social origin. उन लोग को हायरार्की में, कास्ट हायरार्की में कौन सा प्लेस देना है. Shakas being an outsider, obviously difficult to place, but since the kings will belong to Kshatriya category, तो उस हिसाब से शायद उनको क्षत्रियाज में डाल दिया गया. And some of the Satvahana rulers, what they did is they traced their lineage, okay, to some of the Vedic sages or seers. तो तुम अगर अपने आप को सेज से एसोसिएट करोगे, यानी यू आर wanting to take the position of Brahmins, okay, you want to identify yourself as Brahmins. So once these people establish themselves as a power to reckon with, they had to ensure that they also elevated their status within the caste hierarchy. Okay, so just like the Satavahanas were able to claim a higher status by associating themselves with Vedic seer, another group of rulers or a dynasty, what they did is they directly claimed their status by identifying themselves with gods or deities. Okay, and who were these rulers? They were the Kushanas. So they adopted the titles, lofty titles such as Devputra, meaning sons of God. And in order to showcase this in the eyes of people whom they were ruling, they did so by minting coins. Okay, on one side of the coin you had the figure of a deity, on the other side you had the figure of a king or the emperor, a Kushana emperor engraved on that. Then you had the colossal statues or huge statues of Kanishk or other Kushana rulers, which would inspire awe in the minds of people who were watching it, thereby reiterating the fact that yes, they were the Devputras. Now let us focus on Gupta Empire, which is also called the Golden Age in Indian history. So this empire or dynasty was established around the Magad region around 4th century CE, that means AD, 4th century AD, and it was marked by a lot of achievements in different fields, not only in the fields of literature, where you have Kalidas writing his epics, but also in the field of mathematics and sciences. But do keep in mind that the Gupta administration was not centralized as the modern administration. What we see is a much more decentralized form of government, with though king was at the center, but there was a group of people known as Samans with whom the king had a feudal relationship. These Samans may have been rulers of the places which this Gupta king had managed to subjugate. Okay, so instead of conquering that territory, what the Gupta ruler or the emperor did is that he asked for loyalty of that particular king, termed as Samant, who would in turn be under the protection of the Gupta king. Unki chhatra chhaya mein rehta, exactly like a feudal relationship. But this later on backfired when the successive Gupta rulers turned out to be weak. Some of these Samans who were powerful managed to break themselves free from the Gupta empire and establish their own kingdoms. And what are the sources available for Gupta period, to study the Gupta period? You do have coins and textual sources, but the most important one of these sources are the prashastis. Prashasti means a composition that is basically doing your prashansa. So the most famous one of this is the Prayagraj Prashasti, situated in Allahabad, which was composed by the court poet of Samudragupt. Samudragupt is considered to be the most famous ruler of the Gupta dynasty. He is also known as the Napoleon of India. And it was his court poet Harisena who composed this Prayagraj Prashasti. But again, this cannot be taken as an accurate source of information because it is written in a very flowery language, only trying to exalt its patron. But it does give us some glimpse into the Gupta administration.